the economic environment is not good for real estate. But US investors have not given up on real estate. They may be a bit more cautious, a bit more selective, but real estate is definitely still hot on their list. The only thing is the relative advantage that real estate had, particularly compared to bonds, has been eroded. Particularly when you look at the inflation-protected bonds in the US called TIPS. They actually move from a real interest rate of -1% to +2%. So that's a 300 basis point shift, which is quite a lot. And the result of that is that it makes real estate in the bigger picture slightly less attractive to bonds. But as said, that doesn't mean that real estate still has a lot of advantages, because particularly in an inflationary environment, modest inflationary environment, real estate has the capability to compensate for inflation, and therefore for big investors, real estate is definitely an asset class they want to be invested in. So interesting about US investors is that when you compare them to European investors and Asian investors, is that they are kind of more willing to take risk. So core strategies are part of the mix, but it's much less than in Europe. For example, only about 50% has a preference for core strategies in the US, which is far less than the 70% plus that they have in Europe. So they're kind of tilted towards value add and opportunistic strategies. Investment in real estate is under pressure, mainly because people do not know where interest rate will be. They cannot reprice if there's no visibility about the interest rate environment. But the expectations are that that will improve quite rapidly, hopefully, but definitely for next year. So what we do see with US investors is that they are now raising capital to be ready to invest next year. And Europe is definitely high up on the agenda, surprisingly maybe, but particularly for opportunistic investors. And we have seen Blackstone raising that massive fund of 30 billion, which is a global fund, but are also raising at the moment Blackstone's Real Estate Partners Europe, number 7. And the target is about 11 billion euros. And they're not alone. There's some other US funds that are raising capital for investment in Europe. And we have calculated that there's about 28 billion that's been targeted and being raised at the moment, which probably will be deployed maybe already next year in Europe. So the investors have not given up on real estate, and they also haven't given up on European real estate. And that is a very good news indeed.